Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Bedfordshire in England, in the United Kingdom. Now, quick note that Bedfordshire is a historic county of England. It's no longer considered like an actual geographic place, to be honest. I just figured that doing the historic counties would kind of be more fun. I don't know. But that's what I chose to do. So Bedfordshire consists today of Bedford, Central Bedford, and Luton. It's right here. That makes up Bedfordshire. Bedfordshire is kind of in, I suppose, southern England, but it's about as north as southern England can get. London is not terribly too far away, right down here. Cambridge is over here. There's Northampton. What else is nearby? Milton Keynes is probably the nearest major city area. I mean, London, obviously, but let's be real. And of course, the major cities we have are Bedford and Luton. Now, there isn't much to remark in terms of geography. It's fairly flat, a bit hilly here and there, but the only real geographic feature to remark on are the rivers, which we can see flowing here through Bedford. That is the Grand River Ouse, and then, which is quite a name. And then flowing through Luton is the River Lee. I like how in at least England and I think lots of the UK, they wouldn't say the Lee River, it's the River Lee. I like that. It just sounds so much more whimsical. There's not much else to remark on in terms of geography, to be quite honest. But there is a lot to say about its history. Not as much as other places in England, of course. But some really interesting facts about this little corner of England here. The beaker culture once lived in what is now Bedfordshire, named after the fact that these ancient peoples buried their dead in these beakers, essentially what today we'd call a beaker, like a jar that's shaped like a science beaker. I don't know how else to describe it. So that's why they're called the beaker culture. That's how they buried their dead. That's one of the major artifacts we have from this time. They would have lived here in about 1800 BCE. The Romans settled in at least kind of the southern area here between the 1st and 5th centuries. Of course, that's CE. And once they were out of the picture, this region was mainly settled by some invading groups like the Anglo-Saxons and the Danes. In fact, I think it was the Danes that founded Bedford. The first time Bedford was mentioned was in the year 1011. And it's believed to be named after a Saxon chief named Beda. And of course, a ford is a river crossing. If you've played your Oregon Trail, you know how to ford a river. So it would have been Beda's river crossing, or Bedford. But stepping back a bit, because of course the Normans would come and take over in 1066, and not long after that, William the Conqueror would decree that the Doomsday Book would be created. A very important artifact in English history. Now, what is the Doomsday Book? It was essentially like a census in a way, but not so much for the people, but for the buildings and towns and settlements all throughout his new domain on the island of Britain. And many places in what's now Bedfordshire were mentioned in the Domesday Book. A lot of places in Luton. And in Bedford, there were quite a few buildings, but the one in particular that I want to mention, because it's going to come back up in history, is St. Paul's Church. It's also believed that buried under St. Paul's Church, like before St. Paul's Church was built, buried there is Offa, who was I want to say Anglo-Saxon. But he was mostly famous for building Offa's Dyke, which over here would have been this man-made barrier, historic barrier between what's now England and Wales, kind of like how Hadrian's Wall is this like historic man-made barrier between England and Scotland. Like, it's not the official barrier, but it was this ancient border that was created. But yeah, it's not known for sure if he's actually buried there. It's just believed that he is. Let's see. Oh, also from this time, I should mention Bedford Castle, because every very major settlement in England has a castle associated with it. So I thought, oh, there's got to be a Bedford Castle. So I looked it up, and it is no more. It was first built in the early 1100s, and it was destroyed in 1224. And you can see the mound where it once stood today. Maybe I'll look at it on Google Earth a bit. But it is long gone. It did not survive the siege that it underwent. Historically, when we get to more industrialized times in England's history, Bedford was known for its lace industry. Bedford lace. And Luton was known for hat making. Two very big industries in this area. Not so much nowadays, of course. It's much more modernized now. There's not so much a demand for lace and old-timey hats anymore. Luton very famously went into car manufacturing. They or nearby is the headquarters for, I think it's called Vauxhall Motors. We don't have those cars in America. I'm not sure how to pronounce them, but they're built near Luton. Which actually segs us into World War II and the history of this area during that time. Luton was quite heavily bombed by the Luftwaffe because of that car manufacturing plant. They were building tanks during the war to help out the war effort. So they were bombed, and the city was bombed by the Germans for that. Bedford was very important during World War II. The BBC, who is in charge of all of Britain's television, radio, so on and so forth, communications, most of it relocated to Bedford and broadcast from there because, of course, London is being bombed in the Blitz. And one program that they ran was a church service at St. Paul's Church. Told you I'd mention that again. And people could watch a live Sunday service here in Bedford, and they called it the Church for the Nation, which is really charming, isn't it? I think the Archbishop of Canterbury was leading sermons there for not just the local congregation, but the entirety of the country. Also, there's a town about, let me just look at this map carefully. It's about here, called Henlow. And Henlow is home, or was home, to a secret Air Force base where Churchill wanted operations to be flown in and out very discreetly, of course. So they turned farmland into an Air Force base, but kept it looking like a farm as much as possible so that the Germans wouldn't find out about it, and it worked. It's all long gone now. I think there's only one shed to remember the soldiers that flew in and out from that Air Force base, very secret Air Force base. But that's pretty neat, isn't it? What you can see now is fields with very interesting markings going across it, that when you look at them closer, you're like, oh, those are old airstrips. I see it now. When you point it out, you can't not see it. It's pretty cool. And pretty much that is the history of Bedfordshire. Like I said, it's got some interesting tidbits in history, but it's not like it's chock full of all this intense historical events like other parts of England, right? But nonetheless, very interesting, I think. But you know what I think we should do? We're going to head over to Google Earth. Now, they're surprisingly for England, usually big countries like England, you find slideshows all over the place. I actually didn't find too many interesting slideshows in Bedfordshire. So, all of you English viewers, because I know there's a lot of you, hello to the English viewers, shout out to all of you. You guys got to go to Bedford. You guys got to go to Luton and all the towns in between and take some cool pictures and upload them to Google. So maybe we can revisit. Berkshire will be coming up in a couple weeks. If you do this over the holidays, by the end of January, maybe we can pop by and see some pictures. I'm not joking. I will do that if you tell me you do it. We will check it out. But let's see what pictures we can find in the meantime. Let's head over to the tablet. Here we are in Bedfordshire. Now, of course, the borders aren't going to appear because, again, Bedfordshire is technically no longer a place, but it's a historic county. We're going to count it. Oh, that was funny. We're going to count the county. Ha, ha, ha. There's England. Okay. So we're starting out by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. So here is the island of Great Britain, which is part of the United Kingdom. England is part of the United Kingdom. And you can see London is not terribly far away. There's Birmingham and Manchester. Major cities there in England. So yes, if we've got, southern, middle, and upper, we are, I guess, technically in southern England, right? But we're pretty north for southern England. All right, let me turn off the everything filter real quick because all the roads are distracting me. So here is Bedfordshire. We're going to start off in Bedford, but we need to get to it first. Here is Bedford. We can see right here, this is where Bedford Castle once stood. I think I can see in 3D. Oh yeah. This is where Bedford Castle once stood. It is long gone nowadays, isn't it? Did I see any cool slideshows? Or you can see the river Great Ooze. Did I say Great River Ooze? Of course, it starts with river. The River Great Ooze. I like that. But yes, you can see it's quite a big, sprawling city. All busy, hustle, bustle. You guys liked it before when I showed you the houses in Mongolia. So let's see the difference here. Because these are almost row houses. Are they row houses? They sure look like it. Pretty much. So you can see like that's a house, that's a house, that's a house. And they call them gardens. In America we say backyard. So no garages, all street parking. Big, busy houses here. Almost like they're like tiny row houses. Very cute. You can peek into people's gardens. Look at that. It's like it never ends. But yes, it's interesting to look up close and see how people live in different parts of the world. It's very common in England to see homes like that. Oh, you know what we should show you? I'm just going to type it in so I don't get lost. Is the church I mentioned over and over again. St. Paul's. Now I have to make sure we're not going to St. Paul's in London. St. Paul's Church in Bedford. That's a much more famous St. Paul's in England, or in London. Oh, it was right here. We weren't too far off. There it is. Boom. St. Paul's Church. Look at that big old spire there. It means business. Now, I think this is John Bunyan, I want to say, who wrote a book called The Pilgrim's Progress, if I remember correctly, which was a really big to do at the time. It was like a theological fiction in a way, and people just ate it up at the time. Oh, pretty gravestones there. We can see more of the surrounding area as well. Here it is on a snowy day. Lovely clock there as well on the church. Posing. Family photo. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely, isn't that? That's very nice. There we go. All right. Let's see. I wonder if I can find all on my own. Look at that little heart lake. Like the one I made in Animal Crossing. It looks just like it. Goodness, I think it's over here. Yeah. Once it pops up, I might need the everything filter on for this. Yes. So these here are hangars, like air hangars, that were built, I want to say just before World War I, for airships, or blimps as we say in America, things like this, for them to park inside back when people thought airships were going to be the transportation of the future, right? They're having a skateboarding show in there. Obviously that did not happen because they were not the safest modes of transportation at all. But today, these hangars are mainly used for filming different things. Movies, music videos, TV shows, skating competitions, I suppose. One of my favorite movies had a scene filmed here. And that is, of course, Star Wars A New Hope. This is the Rebel base on Yavin 4. Oh, so cool. This is where they filmed those scenes with the X-Wings and the hangar and all of that. Oh, so great. I love Star Wars. I love the Star Wars original trilogy so much. I think that's neat. All right. I can show you. Here's Henlow. Now, I mentioned before that all that's left of the original air base was just like one little building. And I went to look for it right before I filmed this, and I can't find it. I don't remember where it was. So maybe someone can mention it down below, because it was geotagged, but I cannot find it. But see, this field is tagged, and it's like an ordinary looking field, right? And then you look a little closer and you see stuff like this, and like this, and you go, oh, that's an airstrip. Just all over ground, right? It's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Pretty cool, I think. And from what I understand in history, it was never found out by the Germans, and they operated and ran operations in and out of that airstrip. Pretty cool. We head down to Luton. Let's see, what was I going to show you in Luton? A couple of neat things here, but I have to remember what slideshows I picked out to show you guys. Over here. This was it. So here we have this beautiful park in the middle, Wardown Park. And here's Wardown House, which is now a museum. Old historical building. But we can see, once I scroll over here a bit, a little post box there. There's some old pub things there. Statues. Here's some of the old hats that they used to make once upon a time, little bonnets and things. And then over here, it's going to be a little hard to see, but you can see some of the lace that used to be made in the area. You can see some gloves and maybe a little, I don't know, placemat, doily, something there. Pretty cool. Lost art, isn't it? Huh. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else in Luton I wanted to show you. There's lots to see. And like I always say, there's all kinds of slideshows that you can check out here. Old cemeteries, old churches and things. Highly recommend that you do that in your free time, in your downtime. Maybe you can even see what the Tesco looks like or the Sainsbury's. Over here in Dunstable. Oh, you know what's neat about Dunstable? If I can remember where it is, I might just have to type it in. I typed it in before, so it's in my recent search history. Yeah, I'll just type it in. Just a neat little fact about Dunstable. This old church over here is right in front of me, this Priory Church. This is where Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon officially divorced. I guess that's where they signed the papers, thus changing, oh, look at that, oh, thus changing the history of Britain forever, creating the Church of England, in a sense, at that moment. That's pretty neat. All right, there's one more thing I want to show you in Bedfordshire, but we gotta find it first. It is in the town of Wootton, I want to say. No. Is it Wootton? I think it is Wootton. Just checking. I think it is. No, it's Woburn. Here in Woburn, there's all this green area here, and here you can see a beautiful deer park. So a deer park, something we don't have in America, is that when the nobility wanted to go hunting but didn't want to go far from home, they would own deer parks where they would boost the population of deer in this area and then, go out and hunt them. But that's not really done anymore. So the deer populations in these parks are just overflowing with deer all around. Look at that beautiful manor home. So that, I think, is really cool. I like seeing deer in the wild. Now that I live in Idaho, I get to see that more often. But nearby, you can see the Woburn Safari Park. It's just a tiger enclosure. Here we go, Woburn Safari Park. So nearby is a little safari. You can get monkeys on your car. You can see some sweet Asian elephants, giraffes, zebras, or zebras as they'd say here. A beautiful tiger, more elephants, some ostriches, a little wallaby, a friendly tortoise, some lemurs, ring-tailed lemurs, a bear, little bears. I love bears. These big friends, some longhorns there, little monkeys, little meerkats, a llama, I want to say. Look at zebras right up to your car, and you just get to drive around and see some penguins and more lemurs. I think that's a shifaka. Pretty cool, right? So yeah, you can see the little driving track there where you can enjoy some wild animals that aren't native to this area, obviously. That's pretty neat, isn't it? There are lots of little secrets. Like there's a really cool event space here. Not historic, but that looks cool from above, doesn't it? There's lots of forests. Why don't we check out one of these forests to end the video tonight? Here we go. Let's close it out here. So thank you so much for watching. If you learned something neat tonight, give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you learned down in the comments. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. This is an ongoing series on my channel. We're heading over to Egypt next to explore a region in the Nile River Delta. And we are going to see the town where the Rosetta Stone was found. I guess tying this back into Britain because I got to see the Rosetta Stone in London, which is the stone that helped us decipher Egyptian hieroglyphs. We're going to see the town where it was discovered. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good night. Good night. Good night. Oh, and I forgot to mention, one of my favorite people is from Bedford. It's John Oliver, who was on last week tonight. He's the best. He's so funny. And he's